morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Sir Meerkat, and welcome back to the Moto Meerkat channel. Now, there have been plenty of great drivers in Formula 1 over the years, with the likes of Ayrton Senna, Sebastian Vettel, and Jim Clark leading thousands of laps in front of their competitors. Lewis Hamilton actually recently broke Michael Schumacher's record of 5,111 laps led back in April of 2021 after the season opener in Bahrain. But there is an unsung hero who's led quite a few laps over their time in the sport: the safety car. Formula 1 would first use a safety car all the way back in 1973 at the Canadian Grand Prix, to be exact. Ex-F1 privateer Epi Weitzes went out on track in a bright yellow Porsche 994 with two yellow flags attached to the rear end, which was actually pretty cutting-edge technology for the time. The FIA did this in an attempt to slow down the field after a particularly chaotic race, but of course there was a monumental cock-up. The officials only realised hours after the race was over and the checkered flag had been flown that in the ensuing confusion of the safety car, Epi, who was of course driving at the time, had not actually picked up the leader, Peter Revson, but instead the second place man, Emerson Fittipaldi, which meant that Peter was able to gain an extra lap on his competitors and pretty easily bring home the win. Although I'm sure Peter Revson was very happy with this mistake, he was more than happy to benefit from the FIA's cock-up. It clearly did scare F1 away from using safety cars in future, as their use would be particularly sparse in the years following, with the only other example really being a Lamborghini Countach making an appearance at the 1981 Monaco Grand Prix. However, by the 1990s, F1 would begin testing the idea of a safety car again, with Mark Goddard driving a Ford Escort at the 1992 British Grand Prix, the 1993 European Grand Prix, which was of course at Donington Park, and then again at the 1993 British Grand Prix. And it was in this sort of time period of Formula 1 where the safety car would become a mainstay of the sport, especially after the tragic events at the 1994 San Marino Grand Prix, where Max Angelelli drove an Opel Vectra. Max would then pass the reins on to Oliver Gavin in 1997. Gavin failed to gain a super license on his quest to Formula 1, so instead of spending his time behind the safety car, he decided to spend his time inside of the safety car. And the specific gentleman which we are focusing on in today's video had a rather similar story to this, and is the man who ended up replacing Oliver Gavin at the end of his stint as safety car driver. A certain German man named Bernd Maylander would take over the role of safety car driver for the 2000 season of Formula 1, and he has been working for the FIA ever since. But just who is this Bernd Maylander anyways, and who allowed him to get behind the wheel of a safety car? Well, it turns out he's actually a pretty good racing driver himself. So, we've had a little look at the history of the safety car itself up to this point anyway, but before taking over the role for the 2000 season, Bernd would actually have a pretty colourful racing career of his own. Prior to 1992, there's very little information on Bernd and his racing career, so he could have been some absolute karting wonder kid that left all his competitors in his dust, but sadly, we will never know. But anyway, in 1992, from the data that we do have, Bernd would begin racing in the German Porsche Carrera Cup Championship, finishing 19th in his maiden season, following that up with a third place in the championship the following year, and then winning the championship in 1994. Some pretty solid progression if you ask me. Alongside the Porsche Carrera Cup, he would also race a Porsche Carrera in the ADAC GT Cup, where he finished 13th in Class 1, and he would race in the Porsche Super Cup as well, where he ended up 4th in the standings. I think we can all agree from that small amount of data that Mr. Maylander had a bit of a thing for Porsches, but sadly this love affair would end in 1995 as Bernd entered the DTM, racing a Mercedes C-Class AMG. Well, I've got to say, Oh my god, one of the coolest cars ever. Look at that thing, god damn. He would end up finishing 20th in the standings, but in the same year, in 1995, he would again race a Mercedes C-Class AMG, but this time in the International Touring Car Championship, where he would finish 19th. Then in 1997, he kind of went from a racing boy to a racing man, taking the wheel of a Mercedes CLK AMG GTR, which, you know how I said that C-Class earlier was a fitty? Well, this is an absolute worldie. God damn, look at that thing. It's pornographic, that's the only word for it. Bernd would manage to take the car to 13th in the standings in the FIA GT Championship, and then 15th in the standings in the same championship the following year. But it was in 1999, the year that good old Sir Meerkat was born, that Bernd realised the error of his ways and would stop cheating on his beloved Porsches, rejoining both the Porsche Super Cup and the Porsche Carrera Cup Germany, where he would finish 6th and 4th in the championship standings respectively. But it was behind the wheel of a Porsche 911 GT3 996, where he completed one of his greatest ever motorsport achievements, finishing 2nd in the GTLM class at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And it was probably a good thing that he decided to ditch the Mercedes brand earlier in that year, as it was of course in 1999 where the Mercedes CLR of Peter Dumbreck decided to go barrel rolling into the French countryside.
The Toyota, lights ablaze, make sure the slower cars see them.
Do a flip!
Oh my god, the Mercedes has taken off.
And this brings us on to the year 2000. Bernd Maylander is the official safety car driver of Formula 1. Now, I'm going to have to don a cheeky little Mercedes cap for this bit, and you'll understand why. In the year 2000, when Bernd started, he took the wheel of Mercedes CL55 AMG, before changing to a CLK AMG in 2003, then a SLK 55 AMG in 2004, then a CLK 63 AMG in 2006, then a SL63 AMG in 2008, then an SLS AMG in 2010, and an SLS AMG in 2012, and then finally an AMG GTS in 2015, and an AMG GTR in 2018. But now, the hat can come off. See you later, Mercedes, because I think I broke something. Because of course, in 2021, we've finally seen the inclusion of a new brand for the safety car. We've still got the Mercedes at some events, but we've also got the Aston Martin Vantage now. What a beauty that car is. Sadly, Bernd hasn't actually given his thoughts on this car in any interview as of yet, but hopefully, maybe we can see him in the future. Maybe I can interview him. However, during this time period where he would drive lots of different Mercedes safety cars, he did not simply give up on his own racing passion. He would actually win the Nürburgring 24 Hours in 2000, piloting a Porsche 996 GT3R alongside 3 other drivers. Now, sadly, there's not actually very much information online about the event at all. I could just about find the results, and there aren't really any photos or videos either to even prove that the event actually happened. So it's a bit weird, but still a massive achievement nonetheless. So big up Bernd. And then between 2000 and his professional racing career ending in 2006, Bernd would continue racing in the Porsche Super Cup alongside a return to the DTM, where he would continue to be moderately successful with the best finish of 2nd in the Super Cup and 11th in the DTM. But as I say, Bernd's official racing career sadly did end in 2006 to allow him to focus better on his full-time role at the FIA. And over his long period of employment as F1's safest man, there hasn't really been any particular issues of note, which kind of just shows how good he is at his job, doesn't it? But Mr. Maylander did come out and say in an interview that Lewis Hamilton is definitely the most difficult person he's ever had to deal with behind him, and that it's really difficult having Lewis behind him because he's always pushing to try and get him to speed up. Obviously, we all know too well the usual get him to speed up messages from Lewis when poor Bernd's absolutely pushing that car to the limit. In an interview with Tom Clarkson on the Beyond the Grid podcast, Bernd stated that, if I'm right, F1 cars lap at around 1 minute 17 seconds around Portimao. They're doing a 1 minute 14 or 1 minute 15 in qualifying or something like this. My quickest lap, also with new tyres, is around 1 minute 58 seconds. That's the difference. is huge. In my opinion, Lewis should show him a little bit more respect of what he's doing at the front of the field and doing it so well. But there we are. That's my opinion. The only question for the future is how long is Bernd going to be able to physically and mentally keep fit enough to keep that role? We'll just have to wait and see. But hopefully, he's done such a good job, it'll be for a long, long time. Not only because he does such a good job, but from all the research I've done, he genuinely just looks like a lovely bloke. All the interviews I've listened to, he seems really, really nice. So again, as I said, I'd love to have him on the podcast one day. So Bernd, if you're watching this, baby, drop me a little DM. You know where to find me. Come on. But anyways, that is all for today's video, everyone. If you enjoyed it and you think you learned something about the history of the safety car or the history of Bernd Maylander, the safety car driver, then be sure to drop a like on the video. I do really appreciate that. And subscribe to the Moto Meerkat channel as well, so you don't miss any of my future motorsport content. Now, Bernd hasn't actually stated his favourite safety car, but let me know down in the comments. Do you prefer the Mercedes safety cars of old, or do you like this new era of Aston Martin safety cars? I'd love to hear all your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. But otherwise, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see all of you Meerkats later. Goodbye, guys.